And that brings to a close questions for oral answer. Honourable members, I have received a letter from the Honourable Leanne Dalzell seeking to debate under Standing Order 386 the High Court ruling that the Minister for Canterbury Earthquake Recovery stepped outside the legal limits of his powers under the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act 2011 in making his decision to amend the 1998 Canterbury Regional Policy Statement. The manner in which the Minister exercises his powers under the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act is undoubtedly an important issue for the House because of the considerable nature of the powers the Act grants. However, for there to be an urgent debate, there must be a particular case of recent occurrence involving the administrative or ministerial responsibility of the government. The Minister's decisions were yesterday set aside by the High Court and an application for a judicial review granted. There is no ministerial responsibility for a decision of the High Court. The urgent debate procedure is a way of holding the government to account for matters of recent occurrence. There can be no particular case of recent occurrence in the absence of any further decision by the Minister, which in all probability may not be forthcoming until the outcome of the judicial review is known. The application is therefore declined. Point of order, the Honourable Leanne Dalzell.
I'm actually seeking your assistance on this because I'm a little unclear. There have been instances where snap debates have been given in this House as a result of a decision of a court, in this particular case a judicial review of a minister's decision. The Minister made the decision last year and wouldn't be making another decision in response to the court's decision because the court's decision didn't allow aspects of it to be overturned. So certain aspects of it, as I said out of my letter, have been allowed to continue, and that are the developments that are taking place in, I think, 3 of the particular subdivisions. So there is no need for the Minister to take another step. The problem is that there was a lot of public controversy surrounding the very extensive powers in the legislation, and I think this Parliament does have a duty to oversee how it's actually operating in practice. And I think the Speaker himself will recall that there was considerable debate, certainly on this side of the House, as to whether we would agree to the legislation going through, which we did, but we feel that the scrutiny is required. So that is why I've put forward the letter.
I don't want to risk a contribution to a debate by a point of order, but the member has pointed out herself that the court has made a certain decision to set aside something, and there is no ministerial decision at the moment. If the Minister had made an immediate decision in response to that, then there would have been indeed perhaps a matter for the House to debate urgently. But the court has made a decision simply to set aside a decision of the Minister. The Minister or the government, the Minister on behalf of the government has made no response whatsoever to that, and therefore there is no matter of recent occurrence for this House on which this House to have an urgent debate, and that's why the Speaker's decision is made the way it is. And the member may well be right that there may well be interest in the ongoing powers the particular Act conferred on the Minister, but that's a matter for debate under normal opportunities when the House has a chance to debate matters. It's not something that requires the House to set aside its business today, and that is the test. The member is asking the House set aside its business today so this particular debate can be held, and that's a high test required and it sometimes is met indeed by the urgency of a matter where there is ministerial responsibility. But in this case there's no particular urgency because the government's not actually made any decision that complies with the requirement for it to be a case of recent occurrence. Would some honourable member care to move that the House take note of miscellaneous business? Grant Robertson.
Mr Speaker, Kiwis have got a good idea of what a fair go means. An attachment to the idea that no matter where you come from, no matter what your background, you'll get the chance and the opportunity to get ahead and achieve their potential. But, Mr Speaker, with this government, it's clearly not what you know, it's who you know. If we look at the front bench of the National Party, it's definitely not what they know. We can see that from over there. But it's who they know. This is a government governing in the interests of the few, not the wealthy few. Let's just take asset sales as one example. A huge transfer of wealth from the vast bulk of the population of New Zealand to those that can afford to pay, that those that have got the $1,000. A transfer from the panel beater in Waitakere man, if you like, or woman, who has a stake in those assets today that is taken away by this national government and handed to the share traders of Parnell. But more than that, the loyalty scheme that the panel beater that is now in place means the panel beater pays twice, because they're funding the costs of the shares to the New Zealanders who can afford them. This process, Mr Speaker, will widen the gap between the rich and the poor, something that this government has no compunction about. And we all know that the beneficiaries of the asset sale program are the banks and the consultants who are raking in millions of dollars to sell off what New Zealanders have built up over generations. The same consultants and contractors who are milking the public sector purse for all it's worth. Because this government thinks that the best way to say whether the public sector is working is to work out what the head count is. Well, the government departments are responding. They're reducing the head count, all right, and the money is going straight to consultants and contractors. It's spiralling out of control, Mr Speaker. The National Party seem to have got their messages confused. When New Zealanders say they like the idea of looking out for their mates, they don't mean the National Party lining the pockets of their friends at the expense of hard-working men and women across New Zealand. And then in a zero budget, Mr Speaker, somehow or other, the government finds $40 million for private training establishments, funding cuts in education, bigger class sizes, no allowances for postgraduate students, but $40 million for private education. Nationals say they want to crack down on welfare, Mr Speaker. Well, how about starting with a crackdown on corporate welfare? This government is governing in the interests of the few and not the many. But, Mr Speaker, the stench of cronyism that pervades this government is as strong as the smell of the brakes on Heke Parada's tyres as she reversed on class sizes. Conflict of interest and cronyism is a long roll call in this government, Mr Speaker. Stephen McElrea, the Prime Minister's electorate chair on the board of New Zealand On Air, interfering in decisions about programming straight before an election. A loan to MediaWorks from Stephen Joyce, a man who knows a lot about that company, $43 million, and that company just happens to allow DJ Key to spin his discs just before the election. And then we've got the appointment of Catherine Rich to the Health Promotion Agency. Now, Catherine Rich is a highly capable person, but she has another job. She runs the Food and Grocery Council. But it's more than that, Mr Speaker. There are two other members of the Health Promotion Agency, Lee Mathias and Jamie Simpson, respectively the electorate chairs of Sam Lotoinga and Jerry Brownlee. Now, Mr Speaker, you may well ask what qualification Jerry Brownlee's electorate chair has to be on a health promotion agency. Well, I can tell you what it is, Mr Speaker. He's an insurance broker. That's the qualification that he's got. Jobs for the boys, Mr Speaker. We can go on. The ACC and Bronwyn Puller saga, Sky City and the Pokies for legislation deal. This government is full of cronyistic deals and conflicts of interest. But a key player in the ACC saga, Mr Speaker, was Nick Smith, who now finds himself right in the middle of the latest bout of cronyism and conflicts of interest, the funding of the Mackenzie Sustainable Futures Trust. Now, let me say for the record, I want to acknowledge the great work of the many community groups that have been involved in the collaborative process down there. My concerns are not with them. My concerns are about a trust launched at the National Party Blue-Greens conference, chaired by a national MP, directly funded by a national minister, and what that funding says about the transparency and accountability of this government. The Prime Minister wants to sweep this under the carpet, Mr Speaker. For him, the ends justify the means no matter what. But our reputation as a country with a transparent public service must be jealously guarded. Mr Speaker, this government is a tawdry government.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
I found the allegations of cronyism a bit